All right, so we move on. Let's try and discuss the significance of these final volumes of the state capture report that were handed to President Cyril Ramaphosa tonight and are now actually available online for your reading leisure. For more on this, we're now joined by the Executive Director at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, Neeshan Balton. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Your thoughts initially on what you might have heard today, and maybe you've had a few minutes to look a quick review of some of the contents of the report. What's your first reaction?
Well, firstly, I'm glad that we are now over with the commission itself. We can now begin to get into the substance of the reports and the recommendations. And I suppose that's where we all have to be applying our minds over the next few days and weeks to come. But I think firstly from the side of the foundation is to express our gratitude to the Chief Justice and to Prof. Mosala for having gotten us to this point in terms of work that the former public protector, whom we must also thank today, Thuli Madonsela, for having persevered and to have gotten the commission started. Having said that, I mean, I have not yet read the final reports that have come out, besides for snippets. Two things that have come: the elected president. And I think that this speaks to the heart of the core of the issue, which is our political system that has enabled state capture here. And the point that I want to get to is that we have a political system that is by and large unaccountable to citizens of this country in other than them voting. So if we vote for parties, those parties elect the parliamentarians, parliamentarians elect the president, and after that, the accountability is to the political party and to nobody else. And I think that a lot of thought has to go into how do we change this system of our politics so that we bring in greater accountability, greater scrutiny, greater transparency. Because without that, we will be getting into these very same problems 5, 10, 15 years down the line. Not that state capture has in fact been completed. We are seeing manifestations of it at provincial and local levels on a day-to-day basis. So this is a phenomenon that we have to tackle at its roots, and that fundamentally goes to the politics of this country and the way in which our politics is conducted and structured.
Is it the politics, or some people might say it's the policing, the oversight by the Auditor General's Office, the NPA, all of these bodies that are outside of the politics and the Parliament, that if they had have done their work, all of this would have been either prevented or uncovered?
No, but go and look at who destroyed the NPA and for what purposes, who destroyed the police and its investigative and independent ability, who almost destroyed the revenue services, and for what purposes. Those were mainly for political purposes to suit private individuals, private families, and in some cases, as has been shown in Bosasa and other instances, directly benefiting the governing party. So I would argue that our political system and its inherent weaknesses enable state capture then and will probably promote it going into the future unless the structure of our politics changes and unless there's greater accountability and transparency.
So what should happen now? A lot of people are talking about action being taken straight away. The president has asked for some patience. What do you say to the president?
No, I can understand that here I don't know the number of recommendations that now have to be thought through. I think that 4 months is excessive. I think it could have been done less, given that government is not just the presidency, but has got, I mean, there's 1.3 million public servants. and a whole range of other professional bodies that the president could have drawn on. But I think in the same vein, we must be asking, what is Parliament going to be doing? Because Parliament is an independent institution. It does not have to wait for 4 months to receive a report from the president. Parliament should, by tomorrow, have been scrutinizing this report and developing its own response to the Zondo Commission. I know many in civil society are already doing that. A number of conferences and workshops are being planned. But ultimately, we have to focus on a couple of things, is the prosecution agenda and how to ensure that all those named in this report and listed, and that there is action, and that action is monitored and pressure is put on. Rebuilding of the state and its various arms that have been broken through state capture and that are needed either for prosecution or for preventing future reoccurrences of capture, like the NP and others have to be done. And lastly, it's about people. People who get appointed both politically and administratively, and policy options here that have to be brought in and changing that. The Commission talks about some independent oversight committee that will vet those who occupy senior positions within government. Now, that is an idea that we would need to explore. It's talking about a system equivalent to what they have in the US, where before key appointments are made, they are vetted, there are public hearings, you know everything about the individual, and ultimately people are screened out of the process. And I think that these are new ideas that have to be thought through and advocated for once we think that there are the solutions to the problems that the report highlights.
Are you confident, though, that the governing party is able to take this process forward? The Zondo Commission report, we see here, Chief Justice Zondo says he casts serious doubts on Ramaphosa's explanations why he did not come out stronger and more publicly in resisting state capture. They are a party that needs to try and hold on to power. And we've got elective conference coming up shortly, and in the not too distant future, we have elections. So are you confident that this party is going to be able to do what needs to be done to make sure that this report is fully complied with?
Well, for me, it's not so much the governing party, but it's government that we need to be holding accountable for the implementation of these recommendations. I think that we all know about the divisions and the weaknesses in the ANC, and it depends which faction of the ANC emerges victorious at the conference itself in December. But we can't be reliant on some faction emerging to pursue this particular agenda. I think, and broadly within civil society and those outside of government and political parties, we are going to have to monitor all of these recommendations. We are going to have to look at the kinds of legal and other options to ensure that the recommendations that we think are feasible are advocated for and the necessary pressure applied. It cannot be that we only would want to rely on the success of the Zondo Commission's recommendations being that of the ability of the ANC to implement. I think the ANC is one of but many players in what needs to be done to get us out of state capture and into a process of rebuilding beyond state capture.
I think you might have given us a clue to this next question. Is this a moment for South Africa to reset, where things have been laid bare, weaknesses that need to be taken cognizance of, and that maybe a new chapter for this country can begin?
No, absolutely. I think we are at a point, not only because of the Commission, but because of the various crises that have arisen because of state capture, global issues, a collapsing economy, a collapsing state. But we now have at least is an idea of what brought elements of this country to the point where we are today. And there's a set of ideas that I think we need to concretely now engage with and advocate for. My sense is that the bulk of what the Commission would be recommending would need to be done without hesitation. There are others there that would have to be thought through in terms of the feasibility, but I'm sure that the intentions behind those recommendations is what should guide us. So I think that here is an opportunity to deal with one aspect of our problems. But I think it's also an opportunity to link it to calls that have been made around changing the electoral system, the systems of party funding, the new procurement bills that are out to change the way in which procurement gets done, and generally issues of broader accountability of our political systems back to the electorate of this country is what we now have an opportunity not only to think about, but to possibly achieve.
Mr. Balton, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this final chapter of the State Capture Report. Thank you for your time.